6'7".
6'7".
Yeah.
Oh wait, he's 6'7".
That's crazy.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like a big geography guy.
It could be so fun and so yee, and then all of a sudden it can be like, man, this is just awful, and it's just the worst feeling in the world.
Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. My name is John Bruce, alongside Shayne Combs, and welcome to episode 102 of Southern Ohio Sports Authority's Overtime podcast, filmed here inside the Chillicothe Sports Card Studio, located inside SOSA The Dugout in downtown Chillicothe. How are you doing today, Shayne?
Doing well. Just got back from some graduation. Good to see kids and families get to celebrate that, and here to talk a lot of tournament action on the baseball, softball side. I've been anxious to do it. Been able to follow a lot of it this week, and should make for a pretty interesting week ahead.
Yeah, and we've got some stuff we want to talk about throughout this week's episode. We've got 3 different discussion topics that we're going to discuss. Obviously, I do want to say one thing. Last night, I was in here at SOSA The Dugout for a graduation party, and near the end of it, as people started to file out a little bit, we got to get into the cage. And I'll tell you what, The first 2 rounds were all right. The last 2 rounds, I should not have gone back in. And this morning, my body was telling me the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And, probably didn't help to go out and mow as well today, but it was a great weekend. It was nice to get out and do a few things before the tournament really ramps up this week. We've got a lot of big-time softball to be played throughout the week. We'll have district champions by next week's episode, and then baseball will have some district championship matchups set by next week's show as well. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah, and softball's already reminded us not to be peeking ahead. You know, I mean, people like us that sit around and talk sports can do it or whatever, but you start doing that inside your own dugout, own program, you might get surprised there a little bit. So we've already had a couple of those.
Yeah, had a couple of upsets in Division 4, and just overall look for possibly more coming up, because pitching and defense come up huge when it comes to the postseason. If you're maybe down a bat or you just face an elite pitcher, anything can happen, especially on the softball side. Like when you get to the baseball side and you're dealing with a pitcher lining up or anything like that, it can make a difference there. But let's talk about a couple things as we get going. We've got 3 different topics. We'll talk about pitching in the tournament coming up near the end, because we'll kind of mix that into baseball a little bit. But filling in time between tournament games. Now, usually with the Ohio weather, you can kind of do whatever anytime. Now, with the Ohio weather for this year, this weather has made it to where a lot of teams are playing throughout their season. So what do you usually, when you have like 4 or 5 games you can schedule and place in the tournament and to try to keep your team sharp, how do you do that, especially in a season like this where there's been hardly any off days?
It's so hard. I wanted to play. I really did. I think that, late in the year, kids want to play. I think especially like, say, next week, sitting here now, meaning this week, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm talking in terms of answering your question from a last week perspective. Let's say you don't play your tournament game until Tuesday. We're recording here on a Sunday. All of last week, I want to play. I may ease up on them physically over the weekend. A lot of graduation parties starting in, a lot of different things there. Like I may ease up on them, and then we'll get a real good workout maybe Monday after school and be ready to go. But John, I don't want my guys sitting around for 5, 6, 7, 8 days in a row where they've maybe seen live competitive at-bats once or twice. I just don't think that's good for anyone. I think in practice it's really, really hard to get them to focus at a spring practice. It gets a little hot out. You're coming out. You're trying to go through. You don't want to develop bad habits. So you're trying to create live at-bats. You're trying to create things. Kids are batting practice to death, right? They fielded every ground ball you can take. But at the same time, if you're sitting there staring 5, 6 days off before you're going to play your tournament game, you can't do that. You have to stay active. You have to stay going. So it's hard. So in the perfect world, I always wanted a schedule that would allow me to play. I'm still involved in a lot of the coaching, group chats and emails and things like that. And I can just see coaches out there begging for someone to play. Hey, we're free tomorrow. We have umpires. Hey, we'll travel. We'll come anywhere within an hour and a half. We just want to play. And it's hard. It's hard. So, it's something that you'll never perfect. Every team's different. Sometimes you want to keep your team confident if they've had a tough year. You might say you want to go out and play, but you also may not want to go out and get beat 15-0 2 days before your tournament game if you don't think your kids are in a good headspace. So I don't have a perfect formula for it. I think you fill out each team, but I think the one consistency is I want to see them stay active and stay in a routine.
Yeah, and it's just it feels like you have that set schedule. Could it almost be a thing where you put out a schedule of 30 games ahead of the season and maybe say that way the kids, when they come to May 14th or whatever, they're like, oh, well, we're already scheduled to play them that day anyway. Sometimes I feel like when you spring it on them, like, hey, tomorrow we're going to go to Miami Trace. I feel like that kind of, you can spring it on them in a little bit. They're like, oh, man, I thought we were just going to practice. I had X, Y, and Z. And then so they're not as into it as much. But if you just say, hey, we're going to play 30 games. Okay, well, we played 27. Sorry, whoever on May 14th, we can't play. Right. Is that something that possibly you could look at doing? Or maybe you just say, hey, I'll just use Miami Trace as an example again. Miami Trace, we're going to play on April 14th. If we don't play, then we're going to play on May 14th. And that way we find 2 dates and we just fill it out with that one team, because if you're going to play them in the non-conference, you're probably only going to play them once, unless it's a doubleheader, which apparently aren't allowed in the state of Ohio anymore. But is that something that possibly you could do? And that way it makes it to where it's not like kind of a sprung on thing?
I think you make some good points there. I think you do try to have plan B, plan C, plan D, and so forth. You do have to get on the same page. What happens a lot of times, and you can't predict the weather a month in advance, what happens a lot of times is maybe the FAC or the FAC have handled rainouts differently. And then one team's available, one team's not, or I want to play, but I've played 27. You've only played 26. We can't count it as a real game for one. Right. That's illegal, right? Yeah. So you got to either did we keep a scrimmage? Did you keep a scrimmage? I don't know. A lot of people feel like the 27 game should go, and you should be allowed to play as long as you're alive in the tournament. You should be allotted like maybe a 28th game or a 29th game. I'm not against that rule, because again, I think you want your kids to play. You've got kids graduating. You've got kids out of school. Like I know most schools somewhere this upcoming week are going to be done with school. So now you throw that into the mix, and like if you're going 3 and 4 straight days without playing, and then all of a sudden you're going to walk out into a tournament setting and face the type of arm that you're going to face in the tournament, man, that's tough.
Yeah. Then you also have to remember, like sometimes you want to go, hey, we're gonna practice early. Well, not all coaches are teachers. And so sometimes you have a coach that's only available at 3. Right. They're only available after
Good
school.
Point.
So
good point. And kids have jobs. Hey, coach, after school's I got a job. I can't be there till. Oh well, I mean, it's all those factors.
Mm-hmm. And then you also have a lot of schools are graduating in the Ross County area today or this weekend. Well, they have Pickaway Ross graduation on Thursday coming up next week. Well, that takes away another date that you're not going to be able to go on, because now probably can have some multiple players that are graduating from there as well. So they're graduating from 2 places, and the time they put in out there as well, they should celebrate both. So all
fair points, and that's why it's the spring is unlike any other time of year. You just have to be really, really creative and think outside the box. And as you said, I think this is what you were trying to touch on. You're looking for other people that are as aggressive and as dynamic as you are in your thinking, so that hopefully something matches up so you can play.
Yeah, because you want to try to play. Kids will want to play the games, but I think you got to have them at least an idea of, hey, we're going to play.
And a lot of times Thursday. If you're really good, some people may not want to get together and play. You know what I mean? Like if you're one of the top teams in the area and you start putting the email out, hey, we're looking for a game, I don't know that your phone's blowing up.
Yeah, exactly. 100% agree with that. So let's move to our next topic, which kind of sticks with a little bit of the head coaching stuff, but you've got all league, all district, all state voting coming up across the area. A lot of people do it on Sundays. This is much more of an in-person type thing than where the voting for the sectional, well, I guess they aren't sectional anymore. Voting for the district is online now. Well, these are still, you still have to see people face to face, which actually probably helps the sectional or the district voting a little bit, because you can't kind of put it to, that team in a different league. Oh, and then you have to have their vote the next week for your kids. So I know I saw you whenever I was with Westfall a lot. We'd be down at the all district. We'd see each other. And what did you think of your duties as a head coach? What are some of the duties as a head coach for your team on top of just getting them ready for the games? But what are some of the extra duties that maybe people don't know as much about?
Well, first of all, the duties I'm referring to are not optional. They are your responsibilities. You got to make sure you're paying your dues. Obviously you're in your league, but you got to pay your district dues. You got to pay your state level dues. I don't care if you're 0-27 or 27-0. It's your responsibility to vote at the all league, to vote in the district level. If you are a voter, vote at the higher level. But if not, if you have kids that are now, that's the one place I will give you an out. If you don't have a kid that's legitimately maybe all Ohio, maybe not, okay. But then even then, I would encourage you, throw a shout out to the voters on some kids in your league, because a lot of times when it would come from a coach that was on the opposing teams, that was very powerful. And then what you hope is, John, that you have relationships. If you're going to do this 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you hope you have relationships of, hey, John, I'm going to help your kid out this year. And then 2 years from now, when I have an all-Ohio kid and you don't, I'd hope you'd return the favor. Right. And we're going to look out for our kids, and we're going to promote our area and so forth. Unfortunately, that's not what happens all the time. I think coaches have to go, and they have to, if you don't have an all-league kid that year, you need to go in and still promote your top kids. Hopefully they'll get on the some honorable mention list, and you'll still vote and give legitimate effort in terms of who you think are the top players in your league. Same way in the all-district. What happens was when you go to the all-district level, it always happened in the 4 divisions. Now in the 7 divisions, it's going to happen even more so. If you're lucky enough to have some quote-unquote friends in the room, y'all need to be there for your kids. And again, it may not be your kid's turn this year, but it may be next year. A lot of times coaching at Paint Valley, our record wasn't as good as some of those other teams because of who we played against. So when we would go into a room, sometimes our numbers, hitting against some of the level of pitching and different things maybe didn't match or whatever. But then the 5, 6, 7 years that we had some really, really good teams, what I found is a lot of the SVC teams were in the room and did go to bat for our kids. So I just think it's important. It's a duty to promote your kids first and foremost, but to remember the responsibility of keeping the integrity of the vote and making sure that you're there. And in today's time with the technology, keeping up on stats, keeping up on media responsibilities, no matter how you feel about that, old school or not, it is your responsibility.
Yeah, there's some different responsibilities that can help your players ultimately throughout. And we're on the same Hall of Fame voting for a school, and I know we had a player a couple years ago that did get in, but didn't have an All-Ohio in a certain sport, not a spring sport, but didn't have an All-Ohio because their coach didn't do their duty and didn't cover their fees, so they weren't eligible to be up for the All-Ohio, and that cost someone from being a Hall of Famer for probably an extra 5 or 6 years until we got kind of the right mix of the room that remembered watching this player and that was one of the best to ever do it without having that. So, and it means a lot to the kids. And it means a lot. They've put a lot of time into it. They put a lot of effort into it. They've had good years. They've seen a lot of positives out there about themselves, and it's, if you get a chance to get celebrated on the statewide level, you want to have that.
No question. And what I have found is it all works together over the course of time. The more you put your program on the map, the more it helps you in terms of some of the rankings and some of the seedings. Obviously, the seedings can impact sometimes how far you go in a tournament. And it's really good to highlight your program, your kids, your league, Again, it's job responsibility.
Yeah, and every job you have responsibilities, and for coaching you may not think it as much, but there are some very important responsibilities that will help and benefit your players.
And I'll even go as far. I'm always going to look at it from a coach's perspective, but I'll even go as far to putting a little bit on the athletic directors. Like, you have to educate your young coaches. You have to mentor them, right?
Yep.
And then if they mess up, you got to teach them or whatever. And then, we're all human. Okay, we messed up. We didn't know. But then after a while, you got to hold them accountable.
Yeah, yeah, and it's because sometimes first-year coaches don't always know exactly. Yeah. If they were a long-time assistant that didn't maybe go to the meetings before. Now, that was one of the things I was always fortunate with Coach Thomas, was he'd always ask if I wanted to go, and so I'd get to go.
Now they've even changed the rules sometimes if they let you in the room.
Mm-hmm. So, it can definitely be a different world out there, and it would really benefit your players individually as well. So let's go to one more topic, and this one is going to talk about pitching. This is specifically baseball, but pitching when it comes to tournament time, this point in the year where your innings are up. What are some of the factors? Because obviously we have the pitch count. The pitch count is there for a reason. It was set. There's one thing on the pitch count I don't like, and it's if you throw 75 pitches to 125 pitches, you have the same amount of days off. I don't love that like that, but it is the rule. So if you go above that, like I just don't see how 75 and over 100 are the same. Where like
fair point.
Yeah, like 30 to 50, kind of similar, but I don't know. It's just to me it's the only thing, but also it's in the rule. So the rules are there. So what do you look at when it comes to arm health? And just for individual players as well. Just your kind of thoughts on this.
Throughout my career, the thing I knew the most was the 10 innings in 3 days. Mm-hmm. That's what I coached out of my 30 years. The majority, way majority, probably all the years run together, probably 2/3 of my career, right? Yeah. Would have been 10 innings, 3 days. And I thought back, gosh, I bet maybe once a year would you throw a guy that 8th or 9th inning inside 3 days. I didn't do it a lot, if I'm being honest. I might throw in a close here and there, like on off of 2 days rest, very rarely. Now, as you got late in the year, the other thing is your kid. Mm-hmm. Certain kids train all year round. Certain kids just kind of are athletic and come out and play baseball. You're going to have to bring them along slower and really pay attention to them a little bit more. But then it went to the pitch count, and when it went to the pitch count, obviously, people way smarter than me came up with some numbers and some different things based on some research and said, hey, here's what we think kids should throw. All right, as you say, I'm a rule follower, right? Okay, it's the rule. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. And that's what you did. The one thing I'll say is this. Like, what I always noticed is little things. They take the double headers away, so they're stretching these 27 games out a little bit more, which makes more games available to your top couple pitchers, if I'm being honest. They also moved the season up from the Monday night to Friday night. That doesn't sound like much, but that's probably another start for your number one because it's opening night. So before you know it, throughout the course of the week, when I saw that we were going to talk about this, I was mapping out just a calendar throughout the year. And here we are in a year where it didn't rain much.
Right.
It's not that absurd to think that someone could be starting to climb up anywhere from that 7 to 10 starts.
Right.
I mean, really, depending on how many innings they threw, how your schedule's set up, how your league plays out. So if you're charting that out, what you'll notice with kids a lot of times is somewhere in the year, maybe it's a slow start, maybe it's a middle, somewhere in the year you're probably, and it's no different at the major league level, you're probably going to see a tired arm. Not necessarily a hurt arm, but a tired arm. You got to pay attention to that. We've said on here before, you watch out because so many kids go to play shortstop the next night. Maybe they catch, maybe they play center field, maybe they're doing other things. And you always try to monitor that as well. But each kid's different, and you want your kid as strong as possible down the stretch and into the tournament. You always, always, always worry about a kid's arm and injury. But here's the other thing that's difficult now more than ever. Another thing that's changed in my career is in all walks of sports is the individual coaching. And I have nothing against that. Kids getting better. I love it. You know what I mean? Especially when you have good people. You know, we have it right here in the dugout, right? People come in here and teach hitting, teach pitching, teach all the.
We have that going on right now. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Kids could be doing far worse things than that. But sometimes what happens is you don't know. And the only thing that's different with pitching than the basketball workout, the volleyball workout, all those different things is, you know, if you're 16 to 24 years old in baseball, assume softball's probably not that far off, and you're trying to get a look and you're going to, what are the two things they tell you need to do? You got to throw it harder and you got to spin it more. You know what I mean? Like, so those are things that all come into play here. I don't know that I ever told a kid that, if I'm being honest. I told people, you need to throw more strikes and get people out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was always very old school in terms of eye test of like, well, how did he pitch tonight? Well, the other team didn't see the ball very well and didn't hit him very well, so I thought he pitched really well. Yeah. It always cracks me up when they go out and they give up like 7 runs in 4 innings. They're like, hey, they didn't really throw the ball that bad. What game you watched? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that the other team agreed with it. Like, it's so... Those are the things that are really, really hard to monitor because obviously you're always going to put the kid first. But what does that mean sometimes in terms of still just using them on the right day's rest and throughout the process getting ready for the tournament?
Well, most kids, unless there's something and they know something's wrong, aren't going to not take the ball. And so that's, you know, typically if they know something's wrong, they'll let you know. But going into it, they're going to take the ball. So it's kind of like, I know you have to protect the player, but at the same time, if you're looking at these rules, it's hard to say, okay, well, Jimmy never said anything was wrong. Never showed anything body language wise. Why would I expect anything else? So I get that part. I do think that with the way the rules are, you have to be very, very good in communication with your players because you have to be able to know if how they're feeling, because if they're not going to show you, I know we had a player that he had like shook his arm a little bit, and so we watched him, and he did it again after the next pitch. We went and got him, went and talked to him, and he was like, "It's just not feeling right." Well, that's something you have to look for, but it's not always
that simple.
Yeah, it's not always that simple. Sometimes when it's just, I guess the good thing is that the pitcher's, on the mound and they are out a little bit more, where if a kid in left field is kind of shaking their arm, you don't really notice it as much. But it's, the person's got the ball every pitch. So I think and you brought up the individual trainers, and I'm going to try to think of the nicest way to say this. They don't care if you win. They don't care how their player's team does. They care how the player does when it comes to their season, but they don't care at all if their team wins. Now, if the team wins, they're going to celebrate that. But if it doesn't directly benefit that trainer at all, and what they can kind of push out to get more people in, so if anything ever goes wrong, you're going to hear it from the trainers. The trainers are going to be very adamant about it. And typically, like I said, they don't care if you win. If you're the coach, you care if you win. Mm-hmm. The players care if they win. The families do. But at the same time, I just think that if I'm working with someone individually, I want to see them do well. Like, is that, especially if it's not in my area, does that make sense?
I think it's really fair. Here, let me stair step on that. Sometimes it's in the other sports, right? Because I can remember something late in my career is the AP prep and some of these different things, incredible things. Right? Yeah. By the way, I want to make sure I'm clear on that. Yeah. But you're trying to map out a preseason of baseball, and I'm trying to map out, okay, how hard can I push my catchers, who I also may need to do hitting drills with, maybe one or two of them's a pitcher. Yeah. And I'm mapping all this out, but then all of a sudden, come to find out, when I did only a batting practice on Saturday morning and an off day on Sunday altogether, they were at a workout Saturday night and they were at a 3-hour showcase on Sunday throwing the football 50 yards downfield. Right. What? You got to help me help you here, in terms of the pro. So my point is, I don't blame any person. I don't blame any person. What I simply say is, we are pushing these kids in a dynamic of measurables, and they're dying to get to these things and so forth. And that's why I say when I watch the big time recruits into their college years and into the minor league years, you see all of these arm problems, and it makes a lot of sense to me. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, you tell someone, they threw 82 3 years ago, and now they throw 97. Well, wait a minute. Is the body made to do that? You know what I mean? Like, hey, I don't think I'm getting a real good snap on my curve. Well, just snap it off harder. You know what I mean? Like, it's that there's going to be wear and tear to that, to practice it and to take it to the man. So I guess that's all I'm saying is we have a lot of different perspectives out there, and it is something to be aware of. I know I got off topic there a little bit. Going back to what you're saying is those are the types of things you have to be aware of how can I keep my best pitchers peaking at the right time. I guess that is where track and baseball are similar in terms of this time of year, I want my best arms fresh, and I want them capable of throwing the most pressurized innings that they're going to throw all year long.
Yeah, and one of the things that I do think are kind of forgotten about when it comes to the showcase things is, can they get a batter out?
Yes.
Hey, if you can throw 95, great. But if you've literally never gotten guys out, like what I coached against a kid who said that he had committed to Toledo a few years ago because he threw 94. I was like, oh, so obviously you're not pitching against us today. He goes, oh, no, I don't pitch. So I just threw 94, and they're like, oh, we're going to make you into a pitcher. It's like, I've never pitched before. He's just 6'4" dude that was athletic and could throw hard. I'm like, well, it's just those showcases will do that for you. Sometimes they don't care if you can get guys out, but the spring and games are for getting guys out.
No, that's a fair point in terms of, we've talked about it a lot. There's a lot of different pitches out there. They've taken the fastball and they've named it 5 different pitches now, and then they've taken the curveball and the slider, and I would call it a sweeper. And as we've said on past weeks, sometimes I like to just say which one's strike one. Right. You know what I mean? Because like the team I root for every night,
love to walk people.
They not only love to walk some people, they like to load the bases and walk. Like they're setting records of all time like totals, and it's May.
Yeah, very impressive. It happens.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's why I didn't want to put it on.
That's the old put it on TV, see how far they can hit it. You know what I mean? I'd much rather watch that than to watch.
Exactly.
I know.
Let's jump over into tournament play. We got boys baseball starting this week. And let's start we did a big preview last week. So if you missed last week's episode, make sure you go back and watch it back, episode 101. We did our baseball preview, went really in depth. This week we'll talk a little bit about when games are going to be played, who they're going to be, and this week in Division 3, we've got 4 games in Division 3. This is where that scheduling can get really interesting throughout the week because you play on Wednesday, and then you don't play again until next Wednesday. So if you are, I'm going to look at Jackson. Jackson is the 1 seed. If you win this game, well, you got some time. You got a lot of time before you play. Now, obviously, the next couple of days, you're going to work practice-wise, but you got a lot of time coming up. So these games will be at home sites. The 1 seed will be Jackson. They'll take on Marietta. Athens, the 4 seed, will take on Chillicothe. The winners of those games will move over to Ohio University on the 27th, which will be the following Wednesday, to take on each other there. The 2 seed will be Miami Trace. They will host Warren. Warren getting some mileage in. They're going to love those diesel prices on Wednesday as well. And then you got Sheridan hosting Hillsborough, which also is not a long or short trip. And those teams will match up in the nightcap down at Bob Renn Stadium next Wednesday as well. So what are some of your thoughts on this Division III tournament?
Well, it segues off of what we just said really nicely because, as you said, with the way the rules are set up now, pitching shouldn't be a huge fatigue problem here in the early going. They play on the 20th. They don't play. Everybody on board with your pitches. Usually you go into a tournament game. I always wanted my top 3 guys, no questions asked, available at any time because you never know when you have to go to number 2. You never know when you'll have an arm injury. So I always wanted at least 3 guys ready to go. And then you'll have an entire week off. Where it gets tricky is on the back-to-back, the 27th, 28th, when you get to the semifinal to the final. That's when it can start to play a factor. I know we'll be a little bit repetitive at times on the baseball side this week because as we were looking for the brackets at the first time last week, they had only been out a couple hours at recording time. I continue to come back to that Chillicothe Athens game. We talked about that a little bit. You shared with me that Chillicothe is about 4 games under 500, but I was talking about how Athens, the TVC Ohio champion, when you're playing Chillicothe on that night, you're not playing an 8-12 team. You're playing a team that's like gone toe to toe, has beaten Miami Trace, the 2 seed. So that's what makes tournament baseball more unique than anything. And I think it showed up in softball, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. And I think that's something for the baseball teams to go to school on of like, we really do need to throw the records out the window and know that we're going to get the best lineup, the best pitcher, the most urgent approach that this team has brought to the field in a long, long time, especially if they've had a bad year, and we got to be ready to match that.
Yeah, you got to be ready each and every night because, especially when you get to these Division III, Division IV, you probably have a little more depth of pitching as well. So now the first round is probably going to be 1 versus 1.
Oh, it's got to be on the 20th with a week off. Yeah. You're overthinking it there if you're not running your top guy out there.
Exactly. And should be some really fun matchups. I do think with the one that could be, I think the one we both think was going to be a really interesting one is that Chillicothe Athens game. That's the one that benefits from the lights as well. So Athens has lights at their stadium. So if it does go long, they can continue to play, where these other ones are going to not want to go back the next day because of some of the weather that could come in. Now, this also, weather doesn't factor in as much here. Now, Division 4, it will factor in because if you have to miss a day, you still have a week, so your pitching and everything has plenty of time to recoup. That's where we'll talk about a little bit more in like Division 4 and 5, where they have set dates like that they're playing Saturday as opposed to playing next Wednesday. So that could come into impact the way some of these tournament things are as well. So what are your thoughts on just if I hate to do this to Lynchburg because it happened last year, but where if you start a kid and then the rain comes and wipes you out, you might not be able to bring them back.
They went over 30 pitches.
Yeah.
I don't have an answer to that. It's just that's unfortunate. You know what I mean? Like you if you're playing, you have to put your guy out there, right? And then you go, and then once your guy throws over 30, you hope their guy did 2 or whatnot. But even then, maybe your guy's way better than their guy. Like it may not even be even. But yeah, there's no special sauce for that, right? That's a little bit of good fortune, bad fortune. You go in and you take a look at the weather, but then, like I said, if the game starts and you're playing, that guy's pitching.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. So let's move down to Division 4, where there's a little more of, hey, we're going to play on these certain dates. So Tuesday of this week in Division 4, you will see the 8-9 game, which is Circleville at Westfall. Now, that's one where it's supposed to rain on Tuesday. As I looked at it earlier, it's 50% chance. This is classic weather-wise of 50% chance, but when I pulled it up, it said there was a 10% at 1 hour of the day. I'm like, I don't know if that equals out to 50%, but maybe it does. We'll see. But that's one where if they would have to switch locations, Circleville does have turf. So that's something to keep in mind on that. And then the winner of Westfall and Circleville will move on to play Fairfield Union on Saturday at 11 a.m., the early game at OU on Saturday. In a district semifinal, not an easy matchup for either team in that aspect at all. And then if you move down the bracket, 4-seed Gallipolis, Gallia Academy hosts Megs, the 13 seed, and then the 5-seed McLean hosts New Lexington, the 12 seed. Those games are on Tuesday, and the winners of that will play at 1:30 on Saturday as well. So that's where the weather could impact some things in a big way, because if a game gets pushed back, you may not be able to have your top arm going in that district semifinal game.
Yeah, the 19th to the 23rd does present a challenge there if a game gets pushed to the 20th or the 21st for sure. Now, John, unless they've changed something so people understand how this works, Westfall the 8, Circleville the 9. So Westfall is your home team. So Westfall makes a call. They'll usually work with you middle of the day, early afternoon. Can you host? Yes. If no, you're allowed to offer another place to play where you could go and play, and then you're the home team. Or you can go to Circleville, but Westfall would still be the home team at Circleville. So Westfall is going to keep their home team status as the 8 seed, but that's the way it goes. And I'll be honest, most teams, because of what you just said, they just want to give themselves, if they are fortunate enough to win, the best chance possible to move forward. The other part of that is, I said earlier, you're going to put your guy out there, but that doesn't mean if you break it open early that you don't start to play with fire, especially if you're one of these programs where the goal is not to make a district semifinal. The goal is to win district championship, right? So, like, let's say you go out and you jump out to a 6-0 advantage through 3 innings. Well, and you notice that the days match up in terms of you go. Now, some people say that's a pretty big risk to take in a tournament game. You never forgive yourself if that team comes back. But other times, how confident are you in your 2? A lot of times people have really, really good 2s and 3s where they don't hesitate to go to them to get big outs in certain situations.
Well, I know Unioto was able to do that last year in the tournament where they jumped out to a big lead and were able to sit Perkins, and he's able to come back for the final.
Yep.
And then ultimately just kind of, I'm sure he was okay with it because his win total just kept going up.
Yeah.
Didn't have to throw as many pitches, but that could be something.
But you need your offense to get going early and often in order to break that open.
Yeah, which is going to be really difficult when you're playing some of these really good arms. So then we move down to the bottom part of that bracket. Also on Tuesday will be Logan Elm hosting Vinton County, and what I think, those are two, like, Logan Elm's finally got over 500. That team is extremely good. They wouldn't shock me if they won a district or made a really deep tournament run just because of what they have.
So athletic. I was watching a little bit of them the other night, and they just passed the eye test in terms of
every position.
Every time they hit a ground ball to the left side of the infield, it's anything but a routine play. They're going to, at least 7 guys in their lineup just get down the line in a hurry. Good quickness. They can handle the bat. They can bunt the baseball, steal the bases. They put a lot of pressure on you for sure. And you get them into some bigger ballparks and some different things and where the gaps open up, and you're going to get a lot of first to third, first to home type of offensive scenarios.
And then moving down, the last first round bracket or matchup there is going to be the 6th seed Waverly hosting Washington on Tuesday as well. The 11th seed, the Blue Lions, who, if they're the 11th seed, then you're just going, man, this is a deep tournament because that's a Blue Lions team that's got some really nice pieces as well.
Well, you and I have been high on the FAC all year long. I think we've had a pretty good grasp on that. We're not saying it's like unbelievable, but we're saying it's really, really good here in the Southeast District. So what's going to happen is, that's going to present Waverly quite a challenge. Now, Waverly plays a great schedule too, so what a great matchup. And then, Wheelersburg there in the 3 seed, sitting there waiting.
Getting healthy.
That's it. They're starting to progress in the right way, following some of their scores. That pitching and defense that seems to always be the trademark this time of year seems to be cranking up right at the right time. Interesting semifinal matchup there for sure. If you get Courthouse because of the schedule they play and the 11th seed coming out, if you get Waverly, then obviously Wheelersburg-Waverly, that's kind of enough said in terms of just that rivalry and what that means.
Yeah, then if you look at those games will be on Saturday. Those games will get played. They'll be at VA Memorial Stadium. We'll have the live streams for them. The first one will be Wheelersburg hosting the winner of Waverly and Washington. That one will be an 11 o'clock start. And then the next matchup will be a 1:30 start between Unioto versus the winner of Logan Elm and Vinton County. And keep in mind, Logan Elm beat Unioto 3-1 to start the season, which would probably be the exact same pitching matchup that we would have on Saturday afternoon. So those games would be streamed at VA Memorial Stadium. on Saturday. So we'll talk all about those games next week on Overtime, as well as the games from the other side, which, as we said, would be played at Ohio University. That will be Fairfield Union with the 11 o'clock game taking on the winner of Westfall and Circleville. And then the 1:30 game will be the winner of Gallia Academy Megs versus the winner of McLean and New Lexington.
Two things we'll kind of put on the agenda for next week, and this bracket will probably highlight it, is the athleticism on the offensive side and how important small ball execution is in the tournament. And then the second thing comes down to that 23rd to 26 jump's unique. Remember, we were just talking about one day. There's not a whole lot you can do with one day. All of a sudden now, if you start looking at the 75 pitch mark, you can have some guys be pretty efficient and get you pretty deep into the game by the time they get to 70.
Right.
Then you kind of look to see where you're at. What do you want to do?
Yeah, and that can definitely impact things
Yes.
all the way throughout the tournament as well. So let's move to Division 5. In Division 5, we've got we've talked about it before, how deep Division 5 is. We'll start on the one seed side, Minford side. These games will be played on Monday. The winners will play. Winner will move on to Thursday to play. So the first round will be Monday, which is Rock Hill will take on River Valley. The winner of that will go on to take on Minford, which would be on Thursday at Minford, another place with lights, so they can go however long. But Rock Hill, River Valley, and then the other one of those district quarterfinal matchups is going to be West Union and Chesapeake on Monday as well. That's one to keep an eye out on because of just the interesting thing of like what Thomas Barnhart can do for West Union.
No question. The one arm could really take over a game and take some pressure off his defense with his ability to take care of so many with the strikeout. Again, the key to going on the road and getting early offense, allowing him to pitch with a lead, and then just gives them a chance to win a tournament game in advance.
Yeah, and if they could then possibly advance to face on a Zane Trace team on Thursday, which, if he's not able to go back for that, probably not a real competitive game.
Probably not going to go real well, but at least you're there.
Yeah, and that gives you a chance. So winner of Chesapeake West Union takes on Zane Trace. That one will be on Thursday. Those are home games as well. On the other side, Ironton and West will play in the 5-12. The winners of that we would talk about for next week because those would be Wednesday matchups between the winner of Zane Trace Chesapeake West Union and Ironton West. Those games would be played at VA Memorial Stadium as well. For Minford, they wait the winner of Rock Hill and River Valley. As we said, Minford the 1 seed, and I don't know if it matters who's the 1 seed because there's about 15 teams that can win that district because just how deep it is. In reality, it's really probably 6 or 7 teams could win that Southeast District. But then you move down and you look at the 8-9. Fairland, the 9 seed, will have to go to Wellston. That game will be on Thursday as well. Wellston, we've seen have a pretty nice season dealing with some adversity throughout the year, but they've got some really nice pieces.
That's got a chance to be a pretty good game there. That 8-9 game, which you'd expect an 8-9 game to be good.
Yeah.
Nice facility, team coming in there. Fairland probably reloading a little bit this year by their standards, maybe starting to find its stride as I see some of their scores down the stretch here. That's certainly a great opportunity for those particular teams to advance and get on that stage against the team, most likely the caliber of a Minford, just to see what you can do with them.
Right, and then the winners of the games on the 21st will take on each other on the 27th at VA Memorial Stadium, which we'll break down next week on Overtime presented by Perfection One. So let's move over to the other side of the district where the number 2 seed, Lucasville Valley, will await the winner of Coal Grove and South Point. That will be the 15 and 18 game. That game will be played on Monday as well. The other Monday matchup will be Oak Hill hosting Nelsonville York. Nelsonville's got some really good athletes, just had some trouble getting wins throughout the year. But the winner of that game will get a chance to head down the road to Lynchburg to take on a really good Mustangs team.
Yeah, you're just trying in those early games. I mean, I know this sounds simple, but you're just trying to get another win. You're trying to play on. You're trying to, even if you're not quite ready at that next level, you want to get there and you want to try to give your kids a chance to see what it is, and because you're trying to advance your program. So those early games, they look like those throwaway games, or we call them play-in games, or whatever. They're important games to those programs. They're trying to get another win, and they're trying to get on a stage. And again, if you have a really good arm and that arm's available through to the count, you still feel like, hey, we can go toe-to-toe and put a competitive product out there and see what happens.
Yeah, I completely agree. You want to add in as many wins as possible to help your program throughout the going into the off season. For your seniors, give them one more chance to compete, and then you get that win. You get 2 more days of practice where you can just keep getting your team ready. Let's say you're. I know as we go down in the divisions a little bit with like a Clay that's super young, no matter how many games they get to play, that means that's more practice. That's more team building for the future as well. So those are all very important aspects to the tournament. As we said, Lynchburg Clay, the 3 seed, will take on the winner of Oak Hill and Nelsonville York on Thursday at Lynchburg. And then
Lynchburg, a tough stretch through the SVC there a little bit, so I watched them a little bit this week with Unioto. The Huntington-Lynchburg game was outstanding. Lynchburg jumped out on them 3-0 early. Huntington scraps back. You're through a real nice game there. They got it back to 3-3, and then both teams threatened a little bit in the 7th, couldn't score, and then Huntington wins it 4-3 in the 8th, I believe it was. Yeah.
And then, so 3 losses in a row for Lynchburg this week by a combined 4 runs.
But against really good
opponents.
That's
how you get. That's how you get ready.
So you're tournament tested. Yeah.
But the Shack champions once again going 13-0 in league play. So congratulations to them. On the bottom half is Portsmouth will host Alexander, the 11 seed, in the 6-11 game. That one could be pretty interesting because Alexander's got some nice pitching depth as well. Maybe not the overall season record that they're hoping for, but this is a Portsmouth team that can really pitch, and they've got the pitching depth.
About 2 or 3 weeks ago in regular season, we kind of labeled Alexander as a sneaky good team into the tournament. And I still feel that. I don't love this matchup for them. If they would have fallen maybe in another spot of the bracket, I'd maybe feel a little bit more like it. I really like Portsmouth. So with Portsmouth's pitching, the depth of Lynchburg's pitching and the depth of Portsmouth's pitching could really make that bottom bracket really, really fun to watch.
Yeah, I think so as well. So as we said, on top, Lucasville Valley will await the winner of Dawson Bryant. Colgrove, Dawson Bryant. We might have an entire episode over that at some point. Just figuring out the precise name and when to use it and everything. So the Colgrove, Dawson Bryant.
There you go. Just say it all.
Yeah, Colgrove, Dawson Bryant against South Point game on Monday. And then that game will be on Thursday. And then Northwest will host Piketon on Thursday as well, with the winners moving on to play on Tuesday in games that would be at Ohio University. Those are the fun start times.
I think you're going to have the big time pitcher step up and throw his very best game against Lucasville Valley, because the number one thing I trust about Lucasville is their pitching. I mean, they're going to pitch and defend more times than not at a high level. So if their offense shows up, then I feel like they'll be fine. I think the nights that would scare you a little bit is when someone matches your pitching, and all of a sudden now you're sitting there as the 2 seed in that bracket, and you get yourself into the 5th inning, and you look at the scoreboard, and it's 1-1.
Right.
I mean, that's when the pressure starts to flip onto the better seed. So I think early offense for Lucasville Valley is a huge thing to watch here in these early rounds.
Now this is just going to be a going back in the day thing, but we were the lower seed, and we're playing a higher seed, and it was a game where it was 1-1 going into the 6th, and I just walked over to a couple of students that we had there and like, hey, why don't you guys make a little noise here? And like our first guy gets on, and then all of a sudden, like you could just see things got a little tighter, and those kids got real loud.
Yeah.
And then our dugout kind of picks up a little bit, and it's everybody picks up energy, and then all of a sudden when you're the lower seed and you're facing or you're the higher seed and you're facing those teams, you're like, well, gotta kind of deal with this, and things can get really tough.
You're exactly right about the momentum switches in those games, because if you go in, but the point I'm making about Lucasville Valley goes in and puts a crooked number up in the first couple innings. Lucasville Valley thought they were supposed to win the game, and you thought they were supposed to win the game. Game's almost over. You know what I'm saying? But like, it's one of those things where I don't care if they come out and strike out 7 of your guys through the first trip through the order. If you match them on the other side, that's the beauty of baseball, right? It's 0-0.
Yep.
So it's the early offense for some of these top seeds allows their pitchers to throw stress-free pitches as they get into the middle innings.
Yeah, and then the stress-free pitches are when you're going to be better longer in the game. You could be really stressful pitches early in a contest, and you could wear out early because of that as well. Yeah. So, and then once again, Northwest and Piketon on Thursday night as well. Those two matched up earlier, and Northwest won it last week, but we'll see this upcoming week as well with the chance to go on.
John, I saw in a major league game, it would have been Friday night. I saw at a major league at bat where a guy went 11 pitches and got out. But when he got out, it was like in the 4th or 5th inning, you're like, that's going to cost, in today's baseball, that's going to cost the starter an inning. They're going to have to go to the bullpen earlier. It's going to move everybody up in responsibility, and it's going to impact. And it did. Now, that team went on to win the game, but it was really, really close down the stretch. In high school baseball, that's times 100, right? Yeah. So, like, because of the pitch count. So it's about quality of at-bats, too. You've got to get your kids, if you're facing these elite pitchers, you've got to get your kids ready to compete with 2 strikes. Foul a pitch off, get a ball in play. Can we reach on an error? 2 outs in the inning. Can we get on and make him throw to another guy? You have to compete. I can't stress how important that is.
Yeah, competitive at-bats at any time are incredibly important. So now let's move to Division 6. So in Division 6, we've got some really talented teams throughout, but let's start with the 1 seed side, which will be Huntington. Huntington's the 1 seed. They will get a bye until Saturday, when they will play at VM Memorial Stadium in a 4:00 game. They will take on the winner of, I'm starting to lose track of my dates already, Tuesday's game with North Adams at Symmes Valley. North Adams, if they've got the right pitching, if Winkler's getting going offensively as well, if they've got the right pitching matchup, they've shown the ability to really be able to compete after a really slow start to the year. But when Corn's throwing for Symmes Valley, that makes them a really dangerous team. That's why they got a piece of that SOC2 this season.
No question about it. I mean, everything you just said is spot on. You've got some terrific pitching matchups there, starting with that Symmes Valley North Adams game, and you look again the dates. The 19th to the 23rd. Yep. Boy, does weather become important. And, where you got Huntington sitting off there in the bye, and they've got the big game pitcher with 2 or 3 arms to support him when needed. And then, we talked about this last week. If seeds hold true down there at the bottom, that could be the early rounds pitching matchup of the whole tournament, regardless of division, that Southeastern Manchester game.
Yeah, and then at the bottom, you've got Southeastern hosting Belpre in the 4:13. That'll be on Tuesday as well, and also on Tuesday, Eastern Brown at Manchester. A kind of familiar matchup. And we talked about it last week, where Eastern Brown played really well late in the season. Maybe their schedule wasn't as tough late in the season, but when you're still stacking wins, you get a lot of confidence. So that could make that a really interesting game for Manchester, trying to force them into trying to use a little bit too much Applegate as well. But the 23rd, we'll have 2 matchups at VM Memorial Stadium that will stream there in Division 6, which will be Huntington against the winner of Symmes Valley and North Adams. And then the 6:30 game would be the winner of Southeastern Belpre and the winner of Manchester Eastern Brown. Those 2 could be really fun matchups if the seeds hold and you get the right pitching matchups.
Well, and I love what you said about Eastern Brown. You mentioned that last week, and you got me thinking after the show a little bit. I was listening to a certain segment back, and that ended up coming across. That's a great point about Eastern Brown. You're talking about a program that has been at a really high level tournament wise here in recent years, and you come into this year and you get a lot of guys maybe still playing that schedule. That happens in sports quite a bit, right?
Yeah.
And you come out the other side of it and you start to play better and start to play better. Well, the one thing about Eastern being down there in the shack is they're not going to be intimidated by Manchester. Like they're going to know how good the young man is on the mound, but they're going to feel like, well, this is a league score.
Right.
We go toe-to-toe here. So that's important, and Eastern could apply a lot of pressure in that 5-12 matchup if they could score first.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and that's going to make that a really interesting side in case that does happen. But for Manchester, the Greyhounds, you want to race out in front in that matchup to try to make sure that you don't ever have to even worry about it if you're them. So let's move to the bottom half, which on the bottom half, Eastern Reedsville was the 2 seed. The 2 seed Eastern Reedsville will await the winner of Paint Valley in the 7-10 game, Paint Valley and Adena in the 7-10 game. Third time they've matched up. The first time was a walk-off win for Adena at Adena, and I would guess that the pitching matchup is going to be very similar to a Garrison against Reinhardt in that one, which could be another really good game.
Yeah, I would think so. Outstanding arms, outstanding catching play. So 2 teams that know each other really, really well. And again, the most simple things could come down to what decides this game. Throwing strikes, making the routine plays. When your coach calls on you to bunt against elite pitching, can you square and get it down to the right spot, get the runner over? Because you just don't anticipate. You never know what type of baseball game will break out, but you just don't anticipate a game where you get up into the 6-5 or the 8-7 realm unless you just have awful defense.
Right.
It's probably going to be more like that first round game that you're referring to, where each team's going to have some opportunities, and can you execute when it comes time to execute? And if you can, you might have some success, but obviously those 2 arms are going to be difficult to get to.
Yeah, and then for an Adena, they've lost a lot of games in a row, but a lot of that's been without Garrison being available. When he got back and was able, they were much more competitive in a game against a pretty good Trimble team as well. So look for that. That's a Paint Valley team that's got back to double-digit wins. The winner of that will take on Eastern Reedsville. That game would be on Saturday at Ohio University. And then also on Tuesday, you have Waterford hosting Ripley. That will be a 5 o'clock start on Tuesday. And then Peebles will host Eastern Pike, who's much improved as well. But I think we both have a pretty good thought process that's probably going to stick through the seeding wise. But that's a really young Peebles team as well, so that could be something to keep an eye out on.
That's a great point with youth. You never know how youth will respond. So far, on the varsity stage, they've responded really well. And you'd expect them to do the same thing in terms of the ability to throw strikes. I really like their athleticism. I think if they're able to avoid the strikeout, I think that's really important in tournament time. Put pressure on the defense, especially when you run the way Peebles can run, 2/3 of their lineup. Put the ball in play, preferably top half, get down the line hard, get early base runners in the inning. That's another huge thing that I always thought in tournament play was huge. Can I get the first guy out of the inning? And that's huge, because if not, it opens up the whole playbook. And again, runs are usually so hard to come by that time of year. You're looking for any advantage.
Yeah, then the winners of those games would take on each other in the nightcap on Saturday down at Ohio University, which would be the winner of Waterford and Ripley against the winner of Peebles and Eastern Pike. Once again, we will talk those games and more when it comes to the Division 6 tournament on next week's episode of Overtime presented by Perfection One. So if you're watching this in like 3 weeks and you want to know what happened, check out episode 103. So hopefully you are watching this, as the time goes, just to kind of stay locked in on this throughout the year for us. So let's jump to our last division of the baseball season, which will be Division 7. These games will be played at the district games will be played at Logan. Thursday, you will have the first round matchups with the winners moving on to play next Wednesday at Logan. The first game, or the 1 seed, will be Green, the winners of the SOC 3. The Bobcats had an outstanding season, some outstanding pitching as well. A very well-deserved 1 seed. They will take on the winner of Fairfield and Southern. That's a nice bus trip for Southern. Fairfield seems like they've been playing a lot better baseball late in the season as well. The Millers with Ben and Cam Miller, they've been much improved overall. They've dealt with some different adversity throughout the year, lost one of their impact starters right before the season that they were anticipating having, and just overall seems like Coach Zimmerman's done a really good job of getting them kind of reset into kind of what they are at this point.
Don't you feel like there's a little bit, maybe I'm stretching here, but don't you feel like there's a little bit of a similarity with Fairfield and Eastern Brown? Because they're two teams that have really had some success here in recent years. They still have some kids back that's had that level of experience. Now they're stepping up and being asked to hit in different spots of the order, maybe pitch in bigger games, maybe start to play a little bit more varsity baseball than they're ready to. But now, all of a sudden, 20-plus games into the year, all right, the game's starting to slow down a little bit. I'm starting to get this a little bit. And there's a little bit of that tradition, a little bit of that experience that's in there somewhere. Obviously, the coaching is more than capable. So that's a dangerous team. They're getting to play at home. That's a capable team.
They play a really good schedule as well.
Yes.
So it's not like they, outside of the league, like they don't play top end talent. So I mean, they do have a really good win at Notre Dame. Was a nice win late in the season for them, and it's just they beat Manchester at Manchester. They're a team that could be dangerous if you don't take them as serious as you should. But Southern, the Tornadoes have a lot of pride in their program as well. So this one should be a really fun first round matchup. The winner, of course, gets to move on to have the great fun of facing John Knapp. 400 plus strikeouts, over 100 career hits as well. Outstanding player, a really nice senior class for a really well coached team over at Green. So keep an eye on that. That one we'll preview fully next week as well. But then the other 2 matchups here on the Thursday, you'll have Trimble hosting Fed Hawk for the third time these two are playing this year, and then Notre Dame playing Western. Western is a program that seemingly is on the uprise, but I would think these would be it's probably going to be Trimble and Notre Dame. We just can't assume anything, but those games would be on Thursday. The winners would face off at Logan on next Wednesday afternoon.
Well, the 21st to 26th jump, the Trimble Notre Dame, that's going to be a nice pitching matchup too. So we've been talking about a lot of these potential semifinal matchups on the mound, and that's got a chance to be a really good. When you say those are at Logan,
yes, all the district games in Division 7 are at Logan this year. Once you get to the district semifinal and beyond, so let's move to the bottom half. We talked a little bit last week about South Webster. They are the 2 seed. They year in year out they are ready to play. They're well coached. They've got some really nice pieces. Bryce McClintock is an outstanding overall player. Bernard, both of them outstanding players. They've got some nice arms. You've got Andrews, Large, McGraw. You got a really nice catcher as well. You've got some really nice pieces, and this is a South Webster team that I've talked about throughout the year. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they could do in the postseason.
I really like. I'm going to work backwards here. I really like South Webster's depth in a championship format on the 28th because I've had a chance now to see Ironton St. Joe's in person. I've been following Portsmouth Clay. I have a lot of respect for that program and that coach. And they're going to, if they're able to advance, they're going to beat each other up there a little bit on the 27th, and you wonder where their pitching will stand coming into the 28th. But here's the kicker with South Webster. We touched on this as soon as the bracket had come out last week. With the 21st to 27th rest time, that White Oak's an extremely dangerous opponent for South Webster because of the young man from the left side Cliff's going to come on the mound because being from the left side, he can also help control the running game. He obviously has great stuff, can throw. And if he's able to get White Oak into one of those dog fights into the 4th, 5th, 6th inning, obviously Coach Veit more than capable of impacting a game as an offensive coach. So now, do I think South Webster is way better top to bottom? I do, but man, the pitcher here is the X factor. Now, with that said, this South Webster team, I believe, is the best team in the bracket. I think in the championship round, I think they would become even more dominant, as crazy as that sounds, even though I think the opponent would be overall better. But that pitcher in that first game, man, that's something that jumps out at you.
Yeah, for White Oak, I can't think of a season where they've had a record similar like this with Coach Veit, but they still have that high-end pitching, no seniors. They're solid behind the plate. This is a team that, in the right matchup, on the right night, you've got that elite arm, you're going to have a chance against anybody. They will host Miller on Thursday. So they get past Miller with Clift. They'll have Clift on full rest, taking on South Webster at Logan. Like we said before, we'll talk about that a little bit more next week on the show. We'll really highlight that one, but that's should be an outstanding possible matchup. And then you move down the bracket a little bit. You got Portsmouth Clay, the 3 seed. They will host New Boston, the 14. That's another one of those schools where it's like New Boston, Glenwood. Are they Glenwood? I know they're Glenwood, but how many of them call them Glenwood? So, I
think I've always called them New Boston.
I always have too. So, but I do know that it is Glenwood. So, I was confused one year down at the Convo. It was the year they played the girls' district finals there, and New Boston was there, and they're in the book, and it's Glenwood. I'm like, who's Glenwood? I had no idea. So then you move down. So you got Clay against Glenwood, or New Boston Glenwood, on the 21st, and then the winners of that game will match up on the 27th as well over at Logan. But they could possibly match up with an Ironton St. Joe, who will host South Gallia. South Gallia, a really well-coached team as well.
Yes, they are.
These are two teams that, maybe you could sleep a little bit on their records, but I wouldn't be surprised to see either of these teams make a little bit of a run just because of the coaching and the pitching that they have.
Yeah, the first round matchup, that St. Joe's, South Gallia, you're right about that. That could be a little bit more of an interesting matchup than maybe it appears on paper. And then the youth of well, there's another one. I assume in the SOC they just call them Clay.
Right.
I've always called them Portsmouth Clay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I assume they're just Clay.
I think they're listed on our site as Clay. Like, we have some weird listing. Like, we have Eastern Pike is just Eastern. And so they're listed on all things for SOSA. But if, like, where I wrote a story about Southeastern beating Eastern Reedsville.
Yeah, I was looking.
It was listed as Southeastern.
I was out at a game
Eastern.
the other night. I think Paint Valley's playing St. Joe's, if I have the right night on it. All my nights run together this week. But, like, and I'm following on Game Changer, and I'm seeing that, like, Southeastern's playing Eastern, Nadina's playing. I'm like, well, which one are they playing? Yeah. I couldn't find yet, and I'm trying to determine.
I didn't help that because I was just like, I'm covering Southeastern Eastern. Like, I wasn't going to say anything different. So keep an eye out on those games on Thursday in Division 6 for the district quarterfinals. The finals, or the semifinals, will be next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, over at Logan, as we said. We will preview all of that next week on episode 103 of SOSA Overtime.
So our Saturday at the VA, you were telling me, the big day of baseball, we'll have those Division 6 brackets coming out on the Huntington side?
Yes. It will be Huntington. We'll play the winner. No, now I got to go back to it. Huntington will play the winner of Symmes Valley and North Adams. That will be the 4 o'clock game. And then we will have the winner of Southeastern Belpre and Manchester Eastern Brown will be the 6:30 game.
Okay.
Those games will be streamed on Southern Ohio Sports Authority here on YouTube. And then you also will have on the other side, the 11 o'clock game will be Wheelersburg taking on the winner of Waverly and Washington. And then the 1:30 game will be Unioto taking on the winner of Logan Elm and Benton County.
That could be a fun day. Like, if you we always say go out and see the games or whatever, but if you're just hanging out at home and want to take a weekend to relax, turn the screen on there and let us bring you 4 of them.
Yeah, or get some Kenneth Hay cooked dogs and burgers as well at VA Memorial Stadium if you so inclined to come out there. So we would appreciate seeing all of you as well. So that's going to do it for our baseball side right now. So one thing I do kind of want to throw out there, I watched Amanda the other day. Keep an eye out on Amanda in that Division 5 in their district in the Central, because when Nick Holland pitches for them, they're absolutely dynamic.
Yeah, we've had them on our coverage this year. Nice team.
They had no-hit Unioto on Thursday. Nick Holland and Gary Kimmerling combined for a no-hitter in that game and just were utterly dominate in it. So really impressed with what they're able to do.
A night after they had just knocked off Jackson. Again, I know pitching matchups are different, but it's still the team.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms
well, Unioto scored 11 runs against Jackson and scored 2 very unearned runs against Amanda the next night. So after they were hitting, and then the next night I don't even know if they hit a ball hard.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a very dominant performance. So keep an eye out on Amanda Clear Creek. Also Fayetteville in the Southwest. We don't really talk too much about Bloom Carroll or Liberty Union, but they're in the Central as well. So keep an eye out on those to cover the rest of our teams. Now let's move over to softball. We will start in Division 3. In Division 3, you've got, man, it kind of, everything kind of broke down into the Southeast. Now we got 2 teams left in the SOSA coverage area. In Division 3, you've got the 1-seeded Chillicothe taking on 4-seeded Unioto on Wednesday at Unioto. The winner will move on to Thursday at Ohio University, where they will take on Tri-Valley in a district championship game. So there's not very many teams. I think it was only 6 teams in the Southeast anyway, or in the Southeast anyway. And you have Marietta beats Athens the other day, and then Sheridan wins to move on. And just overall, you've got an interesting matchup here with Unioto and Chillicothe. And it's a Chillicothe team that beat them pretty handily earlier in the season, but this is also a Chillicothe team that hasn't played super well late in the year either. So I would think they would still be the heavy favorite because we love what Mason Cox has been able to do for Unioto this year as far as just taking the ball and getting in the circle, but doesn't strike out a whole lot of batters and really competes, just doesn't have the same pitching that Redinger has.
I almost think, and again, sometimes maybe I look too deep into it, and maybe I give certain things too much credit. I think Chillicothe and Jackson really took something out of one another in that last week with the FAC format and the way they go. It was a long night at the VA. We highlighted that here on our coverage. If you want to see an incredible softball matchup, go back and watch that here on our stream right here on this channel. That went deep into the night on Monday. They came back at it. They played another instant classic 48 hours later down at Jackson. And as Jackson goes into the tournament and they get knocked off, I just wonder if it doesn't give Chillicothe a little bit of just a refresh button in terms of like, okay, hit the refresh. Here we go. We're really good. We have an incredible pitcher. We're good defensively. Let's bring our offense and let's go to work here. And now maybe I'll be wrong, but I really think Chillicothe will reset here and play really, really well on the 20th. And then you talk about the quick turnaround, the 21st there. That's not quite the same setup that Steubenville's facing.
Yeah, well, Tri-Valley.
Or excuse me, Steubenville Tri-Valley winner, which was Tri-Valley. Sorry.
Yeah, Tri-Valley. 15-11 on the season. They do not strike people out. 65 strikeouts in the 26 games, but 15-11, you're facing really good competition night in, night out. They can really hit, and they faced outstanding pitching.
Well, you look at the 9-5 score in that, and that's not it's kind of the theme of the whole area of softball. That's not a normal tournament score, softball score.
They don't give up a ton of home runs. So you keep the ball in the ballpark, you let your team make plays, and you're going to give yourself a chance, and that's what Tri-Valley is. But so for Unioto or Chillicothe, the winner of that game, they have to think, okay, well, at least we're not facing anyone super overwhelming pitching-wise that we have to really like be locked in on the game plan. It's like, okay, well, we know what the game plan is going to be. At least it's not going to be, I don't know.
You got to feel like Chillicothe's got the best arm in the bracket.
Yeah, I would think so. But, it's just, you never know. And it could happen anytime, and that's what we saw last week in Division 4, which is what we're going to talk about now. Division 4, we had, I'll just kind of just go over what the games are going to be. On Monday at Logan, you will have the 8th seed Waverly will take on the 4th seed South Point, and then Logan Elm will take on Gallia Academy afterwards. Those games will be on Monday. So, in case you're wondering, the top 2 seeds are the 2-seeded Logan Elm and the 4-seeded South Point, because we had some upsets. We'll start with the big one, which was Waverly upsetting Jackson. Second time in the last 3 years where the Tigers have knocked off a high-seeded Jackson team to advance. First, and we kind of want to get it out of the way first. Now, Jackson was without Youngstown State commit Matty Wright due to illness. But Serenity Taylor still struck out 13. They only give up 2 runs, so it's not like, obviously you lose a big-time impact player like that, but it's not like they fell apart pitching and defense-wise. So they still, full credit to the rest of their team. They gave themselves a chance in that, and as we said, Taylor striking out 13 in the game gives them a chance. So that is something that, it is something that needs to be addressed, right?
Yeah, it's a factor. But, I still think, it's a story, so we talk about it, but then the story is what Waverly ended up doing. Well, it's like you said, the first thing I looked at when I heard that was I had heard who won before I heard the score. Mm-hmm. So as soon as I heard the score of 2-1, I'm like, well, they don't give up 2.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is more about Waverly pitching, Waverly defense, and Waverly belief that they could go head-to-head. Waverly comes in, takes the 10-0 win over Greenfield right off the bat to set a tone, and then go in obviously with a lot of confidence, and what a big win. And now you talk about opportunity out in front of them. It's there.
Yeah, it is out there. Then they face elite pitching night in, night out, in not only in their league but also in their non-league. Waverly does a great job with their schedule. And then Lexi Smith, who we had a SOSA sound clip of her last week. If you didn't see it, check that out here on our YouTube page as well. She did a great job. She scattered 6 hits, didn't walk a batter, only struck out 4, but the not walking
didn't walk
anyone.
a batter.
Yeah, so then you're limiting it to 1 batter, 1 base runner an inning, more or less. And their defense played well. Just a really nice outing for Waverly as they move on once again. Also in that game, Addie Hudnall and Haley Jones combined for 5 hits on the night. And then Hudnall knocked in both runs, one in the first, one in the third, to ultimately give them that 2-1 win. Outstanding performance by Waverly.
Big time clutch hits. We always talk about it's not always how many hits you have, it's when do you get the hit. Like if it's early in the game and the runner's in scoring position, can you put your team out in front? Especially in a game where maybe you're the underdog a little bit, you can really flip Lady Mo in a hurry. Man, what a big win.
Yeah, huge win for them. And then for Jackson, an outstanding season overall. And, they're going to miss
This is the harsh reality of tournament baseball and softball. You have upsets in all sports, but like baseball, softball, this is the great equalizer when you get the pitching matchup.
Yes, and it's just if you've got that elite arm and elite defense, it can ultimately put things together in a big way for you to pull off or maybe get upset in a 1-game elimination factor. So let's move down to South Point, which we talked about last week a good bit. They dominated Warren in a game. It was 14-0 with 2 outs in the 5th, and ended up giving up 2 unearned runs. Addison and Coda Copley combined to go 8 for 8 with 7 runs scored, 7 RBI in the game. Addison also hit a home run. Coda doubled. Coda was really good in the circle like she has been all season. And then Reagan Yates knocked in 3 for the Pointers. Since she bats behind them, I would just guess that she knocked in the Copleys at some point.
You were all over this last week. You were really high on the ability for them to impact the game offensively, and what a great combination. We talked about scoring early, so that you jump out and you can throw stress-free pitches. I mean, when you look up there at the board and you're out comfortably in front, boy, does that strike zone open up, and you don't fear the long ball. You don't fear making the mistake, and now they become a tough team because obviously they're going to see an outstanding pitcher on the Waverly side, but they've got to come in swinging a pretty confident bat there, particularly in that one part of the order.
Yeah, and then they're a team that we talked about before, like a Waverly, like a Jackson. They go out and they play elite teams at all times. So there's going to be some losses, but when you face elite pitching, you're not worried about.
And you're not scared.
Yeah, you're not scared, and that's what's going to make that game. That's the 4:00 game at Logan on Monday. That's going to be a really fun game to watch.
Yeah.
Really good pitching, really good defense, and then you see a little bit of the pop coming from the Pointers as well. So then the evening game will feature Logan Elm and Gaia Academy. Logan Elm did a really good job early in that matchup against Fairfield Union. Fairfield Union, who upset Benton County to move on in a game where I was texting with Brock Netter, and I sent you kind of a screenshot about it. It was like, why does anyone pitch to Ella Harmon? Well, then they stopped. So she had two home runs for Fairfield Union in her first two at bats. I'm just like, this is crazy why they would even pitch to her. Then, and they get to the sixth inning with a runner on, they walk her, which is the right thing to do, and then her teammates came through and were huge. Fairfield Union just dominated and gave themselves a chance to go on and play Logan Elm. Well, top of the first, you get Logan Elm taking on Fairfield Union, and Harmon goes deep in that game and hits her 19th home run of the season, but overall it would be the Braves. Yeah, the Braves who would win once again. Sadie Binkley was really good in the circle. She settles down after that first inning home run and gives them a fighting chance. And then Abby Pontius, Lucy Kaplinger, Hannah Gooley all doubled in the 12-1 win. And then Pontius and Peyton Richendaler each knocked in 3 runs for the Braves as well.
Yeah, listen, Logan Elm, now all of a sudden, when you look up there and you see what's happened to Jackson, Logan Elm's got to be starting to lick the chops a little bit in terms of understanding the opportunity out in front of them. Especially, I'm sure it ended up breaking their heart to see their nearby rival Circleville go down in the other bracket. I'm sure they were really heartbroken for that.
Yeah, Gaia Academy coming in as the 6th seed. Chloe Bennett did a great job of keeping them in the yard. She gave up some hits, gave up 4 unearned runs, so the defense has got to tighten up a little bit for Gaia Academy, but she was really good in that game of keeping a really dynamic offense kind of down. And then in the game, Kinsley Mitchell goes 3 for 3 with a triple, 2 runs, 2 RBI. Down in the 7 hole and the 8 hole, Kendall Eddy knocked in 3 runs for the Blue Angels as well. Also, I don't know why I wrote Blue Devils. Why did I write Blue Devils on there? Come on,
just
I'm better.
habit.
I know, but
you didn't have to tell on yourself.
I know, but I'm just looking at it.
Because they can't see your screen.
They don't see the
you
notes.
Have to,
yeah, you guys don't see the notes that I have. Yeah, that's true. I'm going to edit this out. I'm not going to edit. That would take too much work. But they also feature Ava Angel is a Minnesota commit, has set a school record for in-season and career home runs. So a big-time bat in this matchup. So we'll see how they address her. Bennett's been really good offensively throughout the year. We talked about those two last week. That should be a really fun matchup.
Well, Gaia Academy scores, 20 runs in the first 2 tournament wins. Now they come out to play Logan Elm. They'll need to swing the bats again. But John, you hit on the one thing that I think is not going to fly at all, and they're going to have to clean it up in a hurry, and that's the defense. Because Logan Elm, really athletic. They can put a lot of pressure on you and do a lot of different things. And if you're not up to just making some of the routine plays, you start giving them 4 and 5 outs in an inning, they're going to put a crooked number up.
Yeah, you have to limit mistakes as much as possible in tournament play. So now let's move to Division 5, which we're going to kind of just glance through it because there haven't been a whole lot, because it's you're getting to the district semis first. Here's the schedule for the week. These games will be played at Ohio University. On Monday, Wheelersburg will take on Northwest in the 4 o'clock game, followed by Wellston and Eastern Brown. Both of those teams have had nice seasons. Eastern Brown got a walk to the district semi as well. They were able to get a bye through a no contest. So Wheelersburg is obviously the heavy favorite. With what they were able to do against Chillicothe this week, I think they are probably a really heavy favorite in this region. But you've got some really good pitchers on the Eastern Brown and Wellston side as well.
No question. I mean, Wheelersburg, we could probably sit and talk about them for quite a while in a segment. I mean, they just check every box. They're going to. They kind of live for this time of year, and then now's when they start to flip the switch and go, and that usually means bad news for whoever's opposite in the bracket.
Yeah, they've seen some outstanding arms throughout, and they've challenged themselves, and they were the closest team this year to Kenton Ridge, who's in Division 4, who just beat a team 40-0, and did you see that? They won 40-0. 9 of the 12 outs were them just walking off the base or leaving base early. So it was just the other team just could not get them out. And it's, that's one of those things, and you get some of those different levels. It can be kind of tough on some of those, but that's, it was a walk-off home run that beat them early in the season when they played Kenton Ridge. So it just shows how good this Wheelersburg team can be.
Yeah, and listen, there's some other really good arms in this bracket. Wellston's going to be a team that we've watched them earlier in the year go toe-to-toe with some really good teams and win, and so they're gonna be a nice game down there in the bottom with Eastern. But you're right. I think Wheelersburg is just a whole different level.
I would agree with that. And then on Tuesday, you've got the 2 seed Meigs taking on Colgrove, and then North Adams will take on Southeastern. North Adams and Southeastern both went out and played teams that the opponent would have played throughout the year. So Southeastern played Lynchburg Clay on Friday, and North Adams played Adena with different results. But this is, as we've talked about, this is a North Adams team that doesn't walk people. They don't walk. So you've got to be ready to hit the ball and put the ball in play. And when you're playing a Southeastern team that is so fast, it has so many different players that can really turn a walk into a triple. Not walking players is a huge thing.
No, there's no question about it, and we highlighted from the word go when the brackets had come out. You and I highlighted this North Adams Southeastern game in this round. We thought that had a chance to be one of the real marquee matchups throughout. I think it will be. I think that for everything you just said, a couple really nice arms, young arms that are going to be just getting started on this big stage, and what a great opportunity. For whoever wins this to get to go on and pitch and lead their team on the 22nd in the championship, because obviously Meg's outstanding team here. But we said from the word go that we thought there were 3 or 4 different people that could win this bracket, which was a little bit different than some of the other brackets.
Yes, I would agree with that. And this is, Colgrove has played better throughout the year, and then Meg's obviously has had an outstanding season. So this should be a really fun. I think this one's very wide open, and so is the next one, which will be played on Wednesday. Piketon will take on Portsmouth in the 4 o'clock game, followed by Ironton and Adena. There's sure to be some fireworks on this night. Just should be 2 outstanding matchups. This is a Piketon team that can really hit the ball out of the ballpark. If it's kept in the ballpark, then they can really run. They can play really good defense. But one of their losses in the year is to Portsmouth after they beat them 18-0. But they also lost 4-3. So Portsmouth has shown the ability to keep Piketon in the ballpark, and if they're able to do so, that's going to make this a really fun game down at OU.
Yeah, this is an incredible night of softball here, because you have the teams that would be considered the favorites in Piketon and Ironton, but as you said, you have a Portsmouth team that's gone toe to toe, and then you've got an Adena team. You talk about hitting the ball at the ballpark and offensively getting after it on a certain night. They can certainly do that. So this is really, really exciting, because there's a lot of scenarios that could play out in this bracket, and usually when you have that, the fans end up being treated to some pretty good action.
Yeah, and then Ironton and Adena, it's just very offensively gifted teams that both have some really nice pitching. Now, Ironton's got the bigger strikeout pitcher, but Adena's done a really good job.
Adena and Piketon and the SVC have started to figure it out. Remember, we all laughed. They played that, 21-19 game earlier in the year, and we were joking about 1 to 20 wins like Gus Mack or whatever. I mean, but like it's But to their credit, they have figured some stuff out on the pitching side. They've started to mix and match some arms, use different people. They've started to play a little bit better defensively. And then, look, they're going to hit. And if on a given night, their offense can really carry things.
Yeah, Joe Jett can really hit the ball. And then the two co-SVC players of the year will be in this game. Marley Halcomb for Piketon, and then Marley Halcomb for Adena, and then Aubrey Heath for Piketon. So, yeah, it's just getting some guys mixed up and everything. And just overall, it's should be a really fun night of softball down at Ohio University on Wednesday. On Friday will be the district championship games. The winners from Monday, Wheelersburg Northwest will take on Eastern Brown Wellston winner. That will be the first game on Friday. On Tuesdays, Meg's Coalgrove winner will take on North Adams Southeastern winner. That will be the second game. And the third game will be the Piketon Portsmouth winner against Ironton and Adena. Those will all be at Ohio University on Friday evening.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, should be really good stuff as a whole. Now let's go to Division 6. These games will be played at Unioto. On Tuesday, you have Lucasville Valley taking on Nelsonville York. Kendall Christman just passed. Yep. I think I've called her three different things last 2 weeks. Kendall Christman has now struck out over 400 batters in her career. Only a junior. She's got some really big things ahead of her as well. Taking on Nelsonville York, who just beat South Webster. And then Peebles and Fairfield will match up for the third time of the season. That will be on Tuesday at Unioto.
Now again, you and I had highlighted Peebles and Fairfield as in this particular matchup here, and now we're going to get it. I think that's a coin flip type of game, which you should get in a 4-5 game. But they've obviously two teams that know each other pretty well, and then Lucasville Valley up there in the 1 seed, dominant pitching, I think is going to be the key to making offense hard to come by for Nelsonville York. And then as they get out to the final, maybe a little bit more of a pitcher's duel. Similar to what I said about Lucasville Valley baseball, I think softball is probably the same here. I trust their pitching. I trust their defense. Will they hit enough?
Right.
And if the answer is yes, then they're going to be fine in this bracket. But if not, as Jackson has just found out, you play in a low-scoring game. It's anybody's game come late innings, and that'll be something to watch. Can Lucasville Valley's offense get it going early and often enough to play out in front?
Yep, and that's a ballpark where home runs will be a fly-in if the ball gets up in the air at all there. So keep an eye out on that.
No doubt about it. That just knowing what I know about the baseball field, the softball field basically is just blowing straight out to center field, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and then you've got Wednesday at Unioto as well. Eastern Pike will take on Manchester, and then West will take on Lynchburg Clay. And these games could be very, very different. Manchester had did you look at the entirety of that game, the Manchester Pay Valley game?
Oh yeah. There was
okay, so you have 7 innings. You can leave up to 21 runners on base in a 7-inning game. Payne Valley left 19. Yeah. The last 6 innings, they left the bases loaded. That's insane. That's unbelievable pitching by Manchester to get out of those. In a night where they did not pitch well, they didn't seemingly field the ball really well. Yeah. They do enough to win, and they get a chance to go on and face a really talented Eastern Pike team over at Unioto.
Well, they do, and look, I mean that's going to be a test. I mean, I think it says something about the depth of the SVC when Paint Valley struggles just to keep its head above water all year long, and then they go into the tournament setting against what we thought was going to be a pretty good pitching situation, and do that offensively. So, obviously, as you move forward against some of the lineups you're going to face here, that's going to be. I don't know that I would go with that same formula of giving all of those base runners and expecting to strand them.
Yeah, cannot walk 11 batters for Eastern Pike, or the Eagles will fly away with that game. But for them, I mean, one senior in the lineup for Manchester. So just getting that tournament win is a huge thing for them and give themselves a chance to continue on. They'll have to take on that really talented Eagles team, as we've said. And then West, which had a great time at Unioto last year, district champions, having a little issue on run prevention throughout the year, but just overall, facing a Lynchburg Clay team with some really good pitching in Barnhill, that one should be a really fun matchup.
Yeah, I think so. In terms of, Lynchburg Clay has been a team that's kind of been pretty consistent throughout the year in terms of who they are. But again, West, you just talked about it earlier. You talked about Wheelersburg, and then you talked about Waverly, and then you talked about Lucasville Valley, and after a while you start to add up, and you're like, you see Portsmouth West sitting there in the 3 seed. They're like, hey, don't forget about us.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that just tells you how good they are to be able to put together the type of season they have when you consider who they play night in, night out.
Yep, and night in, night out, they give themselves a chance, and that's why they get that 3 seed, and ultimately why we're going to see them taking on a good Lynchburg Clay team over at Unioto. The finals will be on Friday at Unioto. You've got the winner of Valley and Nelsonville York taking on the winner of Peebles Fairfield. That will be the opener on Friday night. And then the nightcap will be the winner of Eastern Pike and Manchester against the winner of West and Lynchburg Clay. So keep an eye out on some really good softball over at Unioto on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Should be some really fun games. So let's go to Division 7. In Division 7, these games will be played at Wellston, another really good facility for softball. On Monday, these games Monday, Tuesday, Friday. Monday will be Notre Dame taking on White Oak, and then you've got Clay taking on Eastern Reedsville in what could be a pretty high scoring game. In that if Reedsville has their way, because just their run prevention isn't great, but man, their ability to score is.
I like what you're saying there. Notre Dame's by far the top in the class here, but that Clay Eastern game has a chance to be really, really good. Mm-hmm. You're talking about a Clay team that's had a lot of tradition. They went through a couple ups and downs throughout the middle of the year there, but they've come back and they found themselves here a little bit. And I think they're in a pretty good place here. And then Eastern, I know, been talking to some of their people earlier in the year. They felt like they had some really good athleticism on the team, some kids that are used to winning in some other sports. That has a chance to be really good. Now, obviously the prize you get is to play Notre Dame, but nonetheless, you get to that point, and you at least could be a district runner-up if you're unable to pull the upset.
Right, and that's wouldn't be the worst thing, and possibly falling to possibly a 2-time state champion as well, because this is a Notre Dame team that is absolutely loaded and has high aspirations for themselves and really up their schedule. And because of that, they're going to give themselves a chance.
So we agree at the district level, if something happened to Wheelersburg or Notre Dame, we would classify that as about as big an upset as we've had in recent years here in the district.
I would think so. So, and maybe on the other side as well. Because right here, you've got on Tuesday at Wellston, you got Symmes Valley taking on Green, and then Southern taking on Trimble.
No, that's a fair point.
Yeah, because this Southern team is very good. Obviously, they've got some really good pitching. They've got some outstanding athletes. But, man, this Symmes Valley team, they have tried to get themselves prepped to take down Notre Dame. Like, they want to have that chance to take down Notre Dame. And I can't see them not being as focused and ready as possible to have that opportunity.
Now, I'm not as familiar. I mean, I know where it's at, obviously, but because of all my years in baseball, there's certain softball fields I've never really had a chance to see a game. I'm not as familiar with how the game plays out in Wellston on the softball side, but the Symmes Valley team, man, you talk about utilizing the home run. Now, we talked about it 2 or 3 times here on our show. What is it, 8 kids, I believe it is, that have gone yard in that lineup? Yep. I mean, that's just unbelievable depth, and at any time they can just explode on you. So that's going to put a lot of pressure on the opposing pitcher in the circle.
Yeah, going to make things very difficult, and that's where, like a Southern, with the fact they've got a really nice arm in the circle, is going to have a fighting chance against Symmes Valley if they get through Trimble for a 3rd time. So those games would be actually Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. I stand corrected for these games at Wellston. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. So the finals will be on Thursday. The first final will be the winner of Notre Dame and White Oak against the winner of Clay and Eastern Reedsville. And then the second final would be the winner of Symmes Valley and Green taking on the winner of Southern and Trimble. And we will talk about all of those games and much more on next week's SOSA Overtime.
Yet another rivalry there with
Yeah.
Southern Trimble. Those are always good come tournament time, round 3.
Yeah, and you've got a lot of passion
Yes,
there,
yes.
and that's always a good thing. And we love to see it across all levels, and it just makes things even more fun. So, that'll be it for softball. Throughout this season, we've tried to highlight different players with some different power, different strikeout abilities, and I think we're seeing a lot of them coming up at a big time throughout the year, and it's really exciting to see those names that we've been highlighting throughout the year step up in a big way late in the tournament.
No, I agree completely. I mean, you obviously bring a lot of focus when you prepare like to call games. Like we're coming up on some games, you start at the pitcher and catcher and you branch yourself out, but you start to see in some of these lineups there's some tools at the top of the lineups that can really put pressure on you. And when you're able to get them out, it's like you can almost calm down for the next 45 minutes. But the really good teams, they're the ones that can come at you. That's why like the Symmes Valley softball lineup. So the good ones, man, they can just come at you at all parts of the lineup. That's what I thought was so good about Jackson, and that's what made the Waverly performance even better. So even when you think you don't, because on that given night, it doesn't matter what would happen, say 4 out of 5 games. It matters what happens in that one game that night. And maybe a really good player hits a ball hard right at someone, they line out. Well, now they go sit down and someone else hits for the next 8 times in the order. And that's what makes baseball and softball so unique, is it really does test the entire lineup against that one person on the mound or in the circle.
Yep, and that's what makes baseball and softball so unique and so much fun when it comes down to those matchups and the elite pitchers and the ones with the right mindset, and it just should make for some outstanding tournament action. So there's not that many games, but there's a lot of high-level games that are going to be played throughout baseball, throughout softball over the next few weeks, and we're going to highlight all of them next week on SOSA Overtime on episode 103, and maybe on one more after that to kind of close out things. But we are closing out the Haydenstall Healthcare Coaches Call-In Show for the season on Sunday night. So if you missed that, make sure you get a chance to go back and watch. If you didn't see a couple weeks ago when we had a dog here, we had a fish there, had a lot of animal interactions. Take a look at that episode from a couple weeks ago as well. And then if you've missed out on any of your favorite coaches calling in throughout this year, go back and check the timestamps. Maybe they call it in. Maybe we'll have them for next year.
I love listening to those because coaches do such a good job of you really feel like you know a little bit more about the team just in a short interview. They do a good job of highlighting all their kids.
Yeah, and we love having every one of them on. And then make sure we're have a Chillicothe Paints podcast that'll be coming up here in a couple of weeks. Still trying to figure out the name on that. We threw out like 15 different names last night. We'll see what
I can't even imagine.
We'll see what ends up getting stuck with. I mean, we've already got a graphic for at least one of them, so that it could be that. And if it's that, I'm not gonna be happy, but it's okay because it was kind of like Overtime was already named. Like before me and Dewey resurrected it a couple years ago, Derek and Brock did Overtime on actual podcast form, like we did SVC Sports Talk. Well, you and your brother did SVC Sports Talk, and then I came in. And it was actually that was all Bruce. Yeah, we appreciate it. Yeah. But sometimes you just take the IP, intellectual property. We just use that. So if it ends up being horsing around, you'll know wasn't my choice. But graphics already made, so it's okay. I mean, it's been something before, and it's. If you don't know, the Chillicothe Paints are named after a horse. So
Yes.
Yeah, so people might not know that. That's why
They might not.
Yeah, so that's why it probably needs to be that. So we'll have some interviews with players and talk about the Paints team, and then there's also a possibility of another show coming up throughout the summer months, just to kind of maybe talk some coaching. So it might just be me and Shayne. It might be some other coaches in here as well. So I know we've wanted to talk to different coaches throughout the year, and sometimes just things fall through.
I think what would be so neat about that in the summer, and I'm just talking from being a coach, when you are a coach in season, it's like you never turn it off, and it's just so overwhelming at times mentally, and you try to, right? You go and do your job every day, and your family and so forth, but there's just something about the in season grind mentally of. I think you would get some of your best material and some of just the best true discussions with coaches when they feel like they could step away from the season and just talk coaching.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the idea of it is, and we just got to kind of see where it'll go. So as we said, that we've got a lot coming up this week. We've got 4 games that will be on live stream on Saturday. Be sure to check out, look for the graphics and links for those coming up throughout the week. Once those matchups are set, which will be on Tuesday night, check out our socials to see when we're at different games. We'll talk a little bit of the district meets next week as well when it comes to track, because league meets were this week, and once we get to district and we know what's coming in the regional and state, we'll be able to break it down a little bit more as a whole. We want to make sure we celebrate those athletes as well.
That's exciting too, because you start to appreciate, now that we've been joking all year, now that track tries, right? We start to recognize, oh, wait a minute, some of these kids we've been following throughout the year, when you start setting records that are 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years old, okay, we're starting to recognize that we're watching something pretty special here. So I'm glad we're going to get an opportunity to do that, because there's a handful right off the top of my head throughout the entire Southeast that, they're posting some incredible performances. I can't wait to see what they do here in the regional and eventually the state.
Yep, should be an exciting time, and get a chance to celebrate our local athletes as well. So you got anything else?
That's it.
All right.
Saturday at the VA, right?
Yeah, Saturday at the VA.
A lot of baseball.
Make sure you come out and check that out, and go out and watch a lot of good games throughout the week. Friday down at Ohio University, you've got 3 district championship games, and there's different districts celebrating, having those district championships throughout Friday night. Also on Thursday, when it comes to softball, and then district semifinal play starts on Saturday at VA Memorial Stadium, at OU, at Bob Wren Stadium, and then also at Logan. So you've got 3 different locations that will be starting on the weekend, and we'll highlight those next week on SOSA Overtime. So for Shayne Combs, I'm John Bruce. You've been watching SOSA Overtime, presented by Perfection One. Have a great rest of your week.